Ninth Circuit is known to be a bit of a hot bench when it comes to very important or of-the-moment questions.
We're waiting for the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals to hand down its ruling on whether or not President Trump can deploy the National Guard to Portland. If the judges rule in favor of the president, Guard members could arrive here right away. We'll take a closer look at what their deployment might look like. Also this afternoon, a deadly explosion at a bomb-making factory in Tennessee. We'll have the latest on how many people are still unaccounted for. The Trump administration also making headlines today for this move, bringing Qatari fighter pilots to Idaho, what the training partnership means for U.S. bases in the Northwest. And later, Taylor Swift not only making records, she's also breaking records. We're going to take a look at the two major milestones that her new album just reached. KGW News at noon starts right now. And we start with the latest on the protests at the ICE facility in South Portland. This was the scene outside there last night around 11 o'clock. Our crew that was covering the protests saw two people taken into custody by federal agents, although we don't know why exactly. Portland police say they made two arrests last night near the ICE building. One person was arrested for harassment, the other for a warrant. Portland police say they've made 47 arrests in the South Waterfront area since protests began there in June. Thanks for joining us this afternoon. I'm Drew Carney. Meanwhile, we're still waiting for a ruling from yesterday's appeal court, wondering if the president can bring National Guards to Portland. KGW's Thomas Schultz has more on what happens if the judges overseeing that hearing side with the Trump administration and allow the troops to deploy here.
We've gotten some clues on what to expect from Chicago, where troops have been deployed and are predominantly protecting federal buildings. They could also be used to protect people like ICE officers as well. Now, we're waiting on the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals to learn more about their determination here. And their ruling really stinges on whether the Trump administration can send National Guard troops to Portland. President Trump tried to deploy 200 Oregon National Guard troops a couple of weeks ago, but that was blocked by a judge. 2 days after President Trump called up the National Guard, Brigadier General Alan R. Grunewald, the head of Oregon's National Guard, addressed lawmakers, saying troops could be trained in crowd control, but couldn't make arrests.
That Oregon National Guard men and women they serve two purposes: one, to defend America, and two, to protect Oregonians. And so by serving in this mission, they will be protecting any protesters at the ICE facility. That's my desire.
President Trump says everything his administration is doing is lawful, though in Illinois, a U.S. district judge granted a temporary restraining order against the National Guard that assembled this week, saying she found no rebellion in Chicago. And here in Portland, Grunewald says it's possible for any mission to be shortened if the National Guard is allowed to be deployed, though he says the longest they could be deployed is for 80 days. In South Portland, Thomas Schultz, KGW News.
Meanwhile, Oregon Senator Ron Wyden has been pushing the Trump administration for answers regarding the way federal agents are dealing with the protests here. For more on that, here's KGW's Alma McCarty.
2 weeks after several Oregon lawmakers toured Portland's ICE facility in South Portland, renewed demands for answers. One of the legislators calling for them, Senator Ron Wyden.
My view is this Trump unilateral action is an abuse of executive authority. He is clearly hoping that he can incite violence and undermine the constitutional balance of power between the federal government and our states.
The follow-up questions spelled out in letters to top officials concern detainment and processing here, access to counsel in immigration hearings, and the tactics used by the Federal Protective Service, something protesters tell us they've experienced firsthand.
The only time I felt unsafe is because there was an ICE officer pushing me out of the way, pushing other people, arresting people for doing absolutely nothing.
Some of the inquiries directed to Department of Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem ask what type of munitions are used against demonstrators, when do agents engage with them, and what kind of criteria is used to make these determinations.
In the morning and in the afternoon, the ICE agents barely went out. You know, you only see like 1 or 2 times when they come out in the entirety of the day. And then the sun sets, 9 o'clock hits, it's dark, there's a lot more people here, and they suddenly get super aggressive. They're spraying people with mace for absolutely no reason. You know, they're just completely amped up.
To counter a national narrative that the city is in some way a war zone, some have turned to humor.
Our town's not on fire. Nothing's blowing up. So that's just ridiculous statements. And the best way to combat that is to come down here and be ridiculous.
The costume demonstrators who were out in force Thursday night still focused on a serious message.
I'm here for our neighbors. I know this is a crazy guise, but we're here at the ICE facility because we just need an end to this, and we've seen too much violence in our neighborhoods.
Alma McCarty, KGW News.
Keep it right here on KGW for the latest on Portland's ICE facility and the possibility of the National Guard's deployment here. We'll bring you updates on the air, at KGW.com, and on our free TV streaming app, KGW+. All right, quick break from the news headlines to check in with Rod Hill. Rod, our producer Michael warned me that you're talking about snow.
Oh, he let the cat out of the bag. I was going to surprise you.
No, he did. He got right in my ear and said, Rod's got the snow.
All right, yeah. Well, can we take this shot full? I'll talk to our director. We can pop that up full screen so you can see it. There you go. Not unusual. You know, this time of the year we call it eye candy when we start to see the first little series of snowflakes falling at Timberline Lodge. If you're new to our area, elevation is 6,000 feet. The snow level moving forward through the weekend is going to be about 1,000 feet below that at 5 and maybe even closer to 4,500 feet. Timberline is above freezing, 39 degrees, but you can see the snow. It's in the low 40s at pass level for travel over Government Camp, by the way. Okay, a little bit of eye candy fun there. Here's a look at radar. You know, we talked about this on Sunrise this morning. Almost all of the rain so far today has been moving south to north near I-5 and then creeping over on the east side and then running up the Cascades. Now, we are getting a few showers at the coast. We have a little bit of light rain moving through downtown Portland right now, but clearly most of this continues to be over on the east side. It's actually been quite dry along the coast. There's our Snook Winds Casino Resort camera in Lincoln City. We are going to be getting some shots of rain coming up the Cascades through the gorge. This is Elk Ridge Golf Course. Doesn't look like anybody's playing right now. That's out in Carson on the Washington side. And there are the clouds over downtown with some raindrops in the area. We're at 57 degrees. We may or may not make it to 60 today. And a real quick reminder, it's at least possible that at some point later today and this evening, we get some spotty thunderstorms. We'll take you into your complete weekend forecast coming up.
All right, thank you, Rod. Right now, I want to take a look at some national headlines, and we start with this. The U.S. expanding its military partnership with Qatar, with training set to take place just a few hours from Portland. U.S. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth announced Qatari F-15 fighter pilots will train at Mountain Home Air Force Base in Idaho. Hegseth called the move a step towards shared security and lasting peace. Idaho Congressman Mike Simpson praised the decision, calling it, quote, fantastic news for the base and the region. An explosive manufacturing plant in Tennessee blew up this morning, killing multiple people and leaving at least 19 others unaccounted for. Local officials call the explosion at Accurate Energetic Systems a devastating blast that encompassed an entire building. MIT is the first university to reject a proposal by the Trump administration that offered schools preferential access to federal dollars, but only if those schools would agree to a set of demands. MIT's president said the university disagreed with several parts of the president's proposal and that it would restrict the school's independence. And those are some of today's national headlines. Back to local news, the Multnomah County District Attorney says 2 Portland police officers were justified during a September shooting. The officers shot 30-year-old Brian Velasco Ruelas after police say he threatened gas station workers with a gun. Body cam video showed him reaching into a vehicle before officers opened fire. Ruelas survived. He faces multiple charges, including 4 counts of attempted murder. Discovery Middle School in Vancouver was briefly put in what's called secure mode yesterday morning. School officials say a student reportedly threatened staff and may have had a knife. Police were called. The student was on a bus near the school at the time, and officers responded, separating them from the other students. They also said no weapons were found.